Good day, everyone. My name is Arslan, and our topic for today is plastering on construction sites. What is it? What are the effects it has? What are some recommendations and practices? What are some thumb rules that we have to keep in mind? And what are a few final verdicts on this process? So, we have an infographic prepared, and I've tried to make things as easy and as simple as possible. This is our topic, and welcome to my YouTube channel, The Third Dimension. My name is Arslan, and let's get started. So let's zoom in on our infographic. Uh, what is plastering? Plastering is a sort of an application or a finishing layer which is applied on structural members once they're casted and hardened. It is a sort of a finishing smooth layer above the casted member. And why is it done? Well, plastering provides an even surface finishing. It increases the strength of the concrete elements. It protects the rebar from rust and chemicals such as sulfates or chlorides, and it acts as a fire resistant. So these are a few applications of plastering or reasons why plastering is done. And let's go down to our recommendations or recommended practices when it comes to plastering. So plastering is an important construction process which is done on all structural members apart from the slabs, and it's done internally and externally and on the ceilings. All right, so apart from the slabs, every other structural element goes through plastering. Plastering is a sort of a finishing layer. All right, so it comes under the finishing works of a construction building. Right, it comes under the finishing section, and plastering is applied on masonry structures and on concrete structures. So masonry and RCC works both have to undergo plastering. When a structural member undergoes plastering, it becomes more durable, more stronger, it becomes even throughout, and it becomes more fire resistant and rust and chemical resistant. All right. So plastering improves and enhances the overall properties and features of a structural member. So, what are the recommendations or practices when it comes to plastering works? What do we have to keep in mind? So the first point is that use cover blocks or bullheads to determine the proper thickness throughout the element. So use cover blocks and bullheads so that the thickness is even throughout the element. And point number two says that before plastering, hard brush the surface to remove particles, dust or dirt. So this is a very important step. Before the plastering process begins, make sure that the surface is free from particles, dust or dirt, and it's even, it's roughened, and it's clean. Okay, so point number three says that hack any smooth surface so that proper bond is made between the plaster and the surface. We know that the construction, entire construction works on rough surfaces. All right, when the surface is rough, that's only when two different materials will bond together properly. So at point number three, it says that hack any smooth surface and make it rough so that the plaster properly bonds with the surface or the structural element. Then again, rig the joints of the masonry to a depth of 12 mm. This again comes under rough or roughing the underneath surface before plastering. So rig the joints of the masonry so that the plaster properly bonds with it. And there's even another thing called as a chicken mesh. So use chicken mesh. I haven't mentioned that in this infographic, but use chicken mesh between different surfaces and then apply plaster above it. This would again make sure that a proper bond is made. And the fifth point says that effectively wetten the surface so that moisture from the plaster is not absorbed. We have to make sure that the water in the plaster is not absorbed by another element so that the plaster can be properly cured and its strength, and it can gain its strength, right? So its strength gaining process is not disturbed by any other element. And the second last point is that 1:1 of cement sand slurry mixture should be initially splashed before the plastering works, right? So that slurry would act as a binder between the two materials. So make sure to splash a cement sand slurry before plastering. So the last point is once the plastering is done, make sure to apply another lime paste, hydraulic lime paste called the Niru, and it's also called cement putty or lime slurry. So once the plastering is done, another layer of Niru is also recommended and it should be applied, which gives the final smooth layer before the paint works, right? So Niru is the one that gives plastering that final touch. Similarly, as we move down, there are even recommendations for thicknesses and proportions. For external, it is recommended a 1:5 mixture, which is 1 parts cement and 5 parts sand. For internal, it's 1:6, and for ceiling, it's 1:4. Similarly, when it comes to plaster thicknesses, usually the thickness of every plaster ranges from 6 to 25 mm. So all plastering works should be between 6 to 25 mm. And if it's done in a single coat, then it shouldn't be more than 15 millimeters. And if it's done in double coats, so it's usually 1820 to 25, 1820 and 25 millimeters. So in double coats, it should be applied in 2 layers. And there should be a gap of 3 days between the coats, right? So the overall range is from 6 to 25 millimeters. And then again, the thickness is for external works, it's recommended 15 to 25 mm. For internal works, it's either 10, 12, or 15. And for ceilings, it's 6 or 10 mm recommended plaster thicknesses. So this was another small section in our infographic in which proportions and thicknesses are discussed. The last section is a small summary, which says that preparing the surface prior to plastering is very important. As we said earlier, it should be wetted, it should be cleaned, and it should be roughened. All right. So wet the surface, clean it from dust and particles, and roughen it up by hacking so that there's a proper bond. The second point is plastering should not be more than 15 millimeters. So in most cases, the thickness of plasters it shouldn't be more than 15 millimeters. All right. And the third point is wetting the surface and the masonry prior to plastering is very important so that no moisture is absorbed from the applied plaster. And the last point is plaster should be cured for a minimum of 7 days. So its curing period, a 7 days curing period is recommended. So this was the small infographic we have regarding plastering. And there wasn't any detailed explanations here, but it was mostly thumb rules and rules that every site engineer must be familiar with when plastering is being done on site. So when plastering is being done, then you should check the thicknesses and you should check the proportions and the recommendations which we studied here, in which it says that hacking should be done, rigging should be done, and cover blocks and bullheads should be used. So these are mostly thumb rules when it comes to plastering, easy and simple thumb rules to understand and to make sure that a proper plaster is applied on structural members. And these four are the main reasons why plastering is done, or you could say the the main effects it has on the structural member. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope you learned something. And this was a short and a simple video of plastering and its thumb rules for every site engineer. So thank you for watching, and I hope we meet again with another small, simple, and easy topic. Thank you.